Okay, everybody. Hello. Welcome back. This is going to be my part 10 of 25 NL session review. I have a thread on 2+2 where I'm grinding into an $8,000 bankroll, and it's not going too well. But what are you gonna do? I have some big sessions here that I need to get through. A lot of hands to review. And for anybody that just happens to get to part 10 and didn't watch the other parts, I'm destroying 10 NL over 14,000 hands. But at 25 NL, it's been a rough ride. And I've played higher than 25 NL before, and 25 NL really shouldn't be giving me too much of a problem. So I've been running pretty bad. I'm doing a leak finding day. This is like, I'm spending the entire day, probably gonna do like another 4 or 5 hours of review. Already done 3 hours already. This is a big page of like plays that I've found that I don't like seeing, or perhaps leaks of mine that I can plug. And some of these aren't really too bad. Overall, I'm playing pretty well. But these are more intricate spots, like, okay, maybe peeling draws on the turn, like maybe I shouldn't be peeling like a weaker flush draw on the turn to like a half pot bet or something like that, because sometimes like the villain doesn't actually have a hand that's strong enough to pay you off when your flush does hit. Sometimes they have a higher flush. Sometimes the flush doesn't hit, and I think that maybe I'm over exaggerating my implied odds whenever I do call. Maybe I'm also getting it in a little bit too frequently with ace king. I think that that's pretty player dependent. Players who 4-bet pretty wide, who have a pretty high 4-bet stat, I think maybe I shouldn't do it. If they're too tight, then they're probably just going to want to get their jacks or queens in anyway. I think that maybe I can just be a little bit more cautious with ace king until I get to a little bit later in the stakes, to where I can kind of like merge my, or I guess balance my 4-bet and shoving ranges and things like that. Squeezing too light out of position with something like king jack suited, things like that, because I'm finding out that players at these levels don't really fold to squeezes. They just don't really fold too much in general. Another one is that I want to get my fold to 3-bet out of position a little bit higher, because it's currently at like 30-something%, which shocks me because I didn't think that I was calling 3-bets out of position 66% of the time. So yeah, I mean, I like to get that a little bit fixed as well. So let's get to some session review here. Enough yapping. What is this? 28 hand session here? Yeah. So the other one, I already went through a 26 hand session, so it's definitely this one. And we're going to begin. We're going to replay all and move this up there. And why am I not able to resize that? I'm actually sick today as well. That's one of the reasons why I'm actually not playing poker, because I would rather spend my sick day doing a review rather than having a cloudy head and spewing all over the table. I'm going to be 3-betting ace queen here versus Stonewood, 48-17. I believe that this is a 3-bet for value, and we don't flop too good. But I've been sort of testing out like whether or not I should be c-betting here or just checking behind. But I feel like their range is going to be pretty wide, and maybe a bet would be fine just to get them to fold out all of their air and just take the pot down. I also have overcards. I have like backdoor broadways, backdoor queen high flush, things like that. The ace hits, which I really like to see, and I'm gonna bet again. So I think like maybe like 650. So it looks like I check behind. I don't think I like that check behind. Basically, I mean, I guess that, okay, the check behind is like, it's okay, but at the same time, they probably are going to call with the Jack X anyway. Their flush draws are going to call. Pocket tens are going to call, things like that. So they bet 621 whenever the other ace hits, and because the ace of diamonds hits and I have the queen of diamonds and the jack of diamonds and the 8 of diamonds is on the board, I'm thinking like, what are the combinations of diamonds that they're going to actually have here? So they're going to have king 10 and king 9. I mean, it's probably likely because they're pretty fishy stats. 9, 10 of diamonds, and then all the baby flushes like 6, 7, 5, 6, which are going to be more inclined to fold. So that's not many, and he probably doesn't have a boat. So what we would have to do is we would have to basically calculate like the number of combinations that have me beat, like the value hands that have me beat compared to the rest of the ace X that are possible. It looks like I do shove and they fold, but I'm not entirely sure that I like the shove there. Because the way that the hand played out is that they could still have all those value hands in their range by the river, because I check behind the turn and then they lead out. So if we equilab this, I think that that's too thin. I really do. Because there's already 3 aces out on the board. And I think that was a bad shove. Queen of diamonds. Okay, because they're pretty fishy, I'm going to have to give them a pretty wide calling range. But let's just put in the combinations that have me beat here. I'm going to say that 8 ace suited, 8 7 suited, and 8-6 suited. 9-8 suited. Probably 10-8 suited as well. Queen 8 suited. King 8 suited. Yeah, this is definitely going to come out as a King 10 suited and King 9 suited and 9-10 and 7-6 and 6-5. We're going to turn those into diamonds. So that's already, what, 8? Wait, that didn't work. Did it? Oh, okay. I mean, I don't know. Looks like it worked, I guess. A 9-8 suited. I guess Jack 8 suited as well. Pocket 8s is one combo. Okay, and then we have Ace Jack. Ace Jack off. So there's like 23. Jack 9, 10 King, 9-7, 10-6, 9-6. Let's make these diamonds as well. So we have 26 combinations that have me beat. Now we're gonna have to go through the combinations that might call. So something like Jack King suited might call. I mean, honestly, the guy, he might call a shove with Jack King suited if he thinks that I'm bluffing the ace, or if I'm bluffing the flush. Jack Queen suited, I'm gonna put down as well. All of these ace X right here are going to call. Ace Queen is a chop. Ace 9, all of those combinations. This isn't looking too good for us. And that's also saying, like, if they call with, I mean, I think that they would call with King Jack suited and Queen Jack suited some of the time. But I'm not really sure that they'd be betting it here. Like, would they really want to be betting a Jack King? Or we could probably give them queens too, or kings some of the time. I'll just give them kings. Like, sometimes they might have flatted that and then not like 4-bet that pre-flop. We'll take out a couple of these A7s. They might not be the type of player that calls A7 out of position to a 3-bet, but we can give them like a few of those. And it's coming out to 29. Take out Queen Jack suited, 26. So it's like 26 versus 26 combinations. And that just kind of makes me believe that I don't like the shove very much. As you see, like, if my analysis is pretty correct here, then you'd have to agree that the combinations that they have that I beat are pretty much equal to the combinations that have me beat, and which basically means that there's no point in shoving. It's just basically creating more variance that I need to create, which is actually part of this leak down here, is get away from break-even EV plays. If you don't have a feeling that you're a positive EV, then don't get involved. And I remember that I didn't really take the time to process like a positive EV feeling here. I'm just like, okay, I got aces, he's fishy, I should shove. I also looked at the flush combinations, like, because the board is blocking quite a lot of like the premium combinations, and I pretty much thought that pocket jacks might 4-bet. But it seems like there's more combinations than I originally thought of flush combinations, because they could easily be calling things like queen 8 suited, or like queen 7 suited, or I mean, so, okay, 9-6, let's use 9-6, 9-8, or 7-6, things like that. So I think that was not really a bad shove, but probably not the most positive EV shove either. So I'm gonna flat this 10 ace suited. We have like probably what's a weaker player in the blinds here, a 31-18. And I don't know, I like suited aces in position, and hope that the blinds call and we can get a multi-way pot going. So this player checks, check, bet flop is 68%. So I don't believe that they're going to be incredibly strong here, and so I should bet. I don't really need to bet too big. This isn't the type of board that's gonna, like, if this player wants to call with 7-8 of spades or something like that, like, they're gonna call this bet, and they're also gonna call a bigger bet. I have a lot of equity too. I just want to fold out weaker ranges. I'm being raised here, and there's no reason to 3-bet this player. They're raising into this player, who of course checked, but at the same time. So now I have a nut flush draw, and I have a straight draw, and they bet $6. So this is sort of a tricky spot to be in, because you might be inclined to shove. But at the same time, because they're raising the flop into a 3-A pot, and they're 27-22, I'm going to be giving them value for having a strong hand here. What is this going to be, like 9 hearts? 10, 11, 12, 13. No, it's not 9. It would normally be 9, but I have to take out the 9 and the 8 of hearts. So is that 7? Plus 8 is 15. Well, no, because some of the hearts are also part of the... So it's 7 plus 6 is 13. 13 times 2 is 26. It's more like 27, 28% that I have to hit the card that I need without the board pairing. And even something like a 10 isn't a 6 of hearts. A 6 of hearts won't be like the best card. So it's 13 times 4. 13 hearts. 13 minus 4, because there's already 4 in play, is 9. -2 because I don't want the board to pair is 7 plus because the 6 of hearts is one of the outs that I've already counted. It also counts as a straight out, so it's not like I have 8 outs for straights. I only have 6. And also all of the jacks are going to look a little weird as well. But if they have a set, I don't really see them like folding just because a jack comes out. And I don't think that I have any fold equity here either. So I have to call 6-14, and that would be the pot's 15. So that's 16. It's 6 divided by 22. It's the call price divided by the, in parentheses, the pot plus call price. So it's 6 divided by 15 plus 6, or 6, which is basically 22, is 27. 27% equity that I have to call this, because it's really, really close to a half pot bet. And a half pot bet is 33%, so this is sounding pretty correct. So it's a 27% equity, and if I take the 7 heart outs plus 6 straight outs is 13. And then every time you have a new street, you have to multiply the number of outs by 2. Basically, is like what it is. So this is a clear call. I have at minimum 26% equity, but it's usually 2%. It's more like 2.1%, I would, or 2.1 times the number of outs, I'd say. I think you can round up a little bit, and you also have to take into account it's pretty much a break-even call at this point. So if I can extract any value at all on the river, even like a half pot bet, like if a jack hits and they check, and I can bet like $8 or something like that, or just shove basically. So as is, they check, and this is a really, really gross spot to be in, because there's $22 in the pot right now, and this is looking like you could maybe shove this, and maybe they didn't have a set and they might have just been raising a draw. Maybe because Zazapan here checked and they're already thinking that the Zazapan has no interest, so they could be trying to like push me off the pot with a draw. I decided to check behind, because if this player is a thinking player, they might actually think that because I'm calling and I'm not really shoving or anything like that, that I could be on a draw myself. And because the flush draw busted, they might be checking to induce me to bluff shove. And I don't want to take that bait. I really, really don't. If I felt like they were weaker, then I could absolutely consider just shoving right now and folding out like pocket tens. Maybe like an 8-6 that raises with a straight draw and then hits their 8 on the turn. And then wants to turn their 8 into like a bluff to try to get me off of like 9x or something like that. I mean, that's a far fetch, but I check and they have 7-9, so they have 2 pair. It looks like they checked to induce a bluff, which I didn't take. I had to control myself in that one. And if I did hit my flush, then I most likely could have gotten a little bit of value, like some of the time, but it's not guaranteed that they only have 7-9. They easily could have had a set as well. Also, they could be doing this with a weaker flush draw. I mean, it's possible. I'm not going to weight it as strongly. So if the smaller flush hits, then I'm going to get all of their money. If a set and if the board pairs and they shove, I could fold. I can find a fold there. But the equity basically dictates that I should have called there. Okay, so 25 minutes in and we've only gone through 3 hands. Let's see if we can go a little faster here. But again, I am sick, and I have to think a little bit harder than normal to figure out some of these things, I guess you could say. So I'm going to donk this. That's fine. I'm going to donk this again, you know, just for the hell of it. It's 25 and L, they're short stacks, they're fishy. Nobody raised pre-flop. So, I mean, they might not have an ace. But I guess I didn't really need to donk this because they're not going to fold. Like, anything that they call the flop with, they're probably not going to fold the turn. Even like a 7x is probably going to call again because they're fishy. So this is probably a bad turn bet. Yeah, they call. I have the nuts. That's a sweet, sweet card right there. And I think that maybe because like they could have 2 pairs by now. I should probably just shove this. Yeah, let's just shove. Like they could have ace 3, ace 6, 7 6, 8 6, a weaker straight. They could, you know, king high might call me. Like, I just should shove this. They call. And they have a set. So yeah, that's okay. Next hand. Flop a set. So this player opens on the button. Min opens. This player min 3 bets. Like, okay. And I flop a set. Now, this player's first to act, and they c-bet the queen high flop. I don't really know what their min 3-bet means because they don't really have fishy stats. And this player could have a queen. A queen is definitely within this player's range because they got a pretty tight open range. Their button is 19%. There could be a lot of queen X's. Things like gut shots like 9, 10, Jack 10. They bet again. So they're definitely showing interest in their hand. And at this point, I think I should raise. The board's pretty drawy, and they might think that I'm on a draw. And I don't think that I need to raise too big because this is a turn raise, and I don't really want to scare them out if they have like any fold button knowledge. If they know where the fold button is, then they might fold their queen king or queen ace or something like that. But they call. And I shove and they fold. The 3 of hearts is not a scare card, like the backdoor flush. Most players aren't going to give anybody credit for a backdoor flush. It's just one of those things that's off the radar. So the spades broke. I guess the 3 completes a few, like a wheel draw and also like a 6-7. But okay, I already had that on the turn. And now this player has like a queen ace or kings or aces. I'm not sure that they would want to call a shove. I guess maybe I didn't really look at their stats. I just remember that they min 3-bet, and so I automatically labeled them a fish. And I might not have actually looked at the stats here. But I think that a shove might be overkill. I think that I could have bet. I mean, it's not that bad, but they didn't really feel like shoving over the top on the turn raise. I guess maybe they were a little nervous. I probably could have bet like $9, $10 here and would have gotten a call rather than a shove. But I guess I felt like they were pretty strong to begin with. Like they could have had kings or aces. And I think they probably would have called if they had kings or aces because this is the micros. So I'm not going to be too hard on myself on that one. I think that shoving that is pretty okay. But also, I think I probably should have just raised the flop. I would normally just raise the flop there. It's a pretty drawy flop. And if they have kings or aces or ace queen, queen king, they're gonna call me. I could have probably made it like 5, built the pot up a little bit. Yeah, it's okay though. 3-betting aces. King, queen, 2 flop. It's a pretty nice flop. I'm going to bet that. The guy doesn't seem to be too fishy, but is that the same guy as last hand? Yeah, it is. They call. Pot's 11:30, and they have $20 remaining, and the board is really drawy now. And if for some reason, I'm almost guaranteed to have the best hand here now, because if they did have king queen, then the 2 just saved my life here. And I can be very confident in betting this now and then bet calling whatever his shove is if he wants to shove. Because there's a lot of draws as well, like I don't really know if I want to pot it. I want to bet big enough that makes them pay for their draws if they have like Jack 10 of spades or Jack 10 of hearts. Although I think 850 would be a good bet. Yeah, that's too low because I don't think that a Queen X is going to call anymore. Of course they might. But I should have gone bigger than this, and actually should have gone a little bit bigger on the flop as well. I don't think I like this bet size. This is too low, and I should have gone to about 380, 390, maybe 380. A little bit bigger. And I guess whenever I start running bad and I start running into two pairs and weird stuff like that, I tend to just, I guess, maybe just size my bets a little smaller because I'm just a little bit, I become like a rabbit and I become a little bit timid and scared that they already have me beat. But that's obviously a weak mindset that I have sometimes. But that's a bad turn bet. Based off the ranges that they're going to continue calling with and the ranges that I want to get my money in against, I should definitely have bet bigger, like 850, which actually would have been even bigger because the flop bet would have been bigger as well. So that would have been like a $9 bet, and they'd be forced to pretty much shove, fold or shove. And I shove, and they fold. So I probably could have gotten a little bit more value on the flop and the turn. If they had like King Jack, maybe. And they would have called a turn bet, maybe fold to a river shove. King Queen, they could have been on a flush draw. So this player is Onuliak. Ono-Oliak is raising pretty big pre-flop. 33-15, probably a weaker player. We got a tight player here. So I'm pretty sure that their range is going to be pretty strong, which I guess is good because if I flop well, then I could probably, like, they're going to have a strong range also. You know, so check, check. This guy bombs it. 392 into 415. And I call, and I check, and they bet a little bit smaller, and I shove, and they fold. So it's like, it's kind of a sick spot to be in because they raise pretty big pre-flop, which doesn't always tell you too much because, I mean, they're 55-11, 9.53 bet. They're going to be a little bit fishy, a little bit random with their bet sizings and things like that. But whenever he bets the flop really big and then bets the turn smaller, I guess I just had this gut feeling like King Queen is good to get it in here and just get the hand over with. But they end up folding, so I'm not really sure what they had. Maybe Ace King, Pocket Jacks maybe. So that was an interesting hand. Kind of a weird hand. I didn't really want to see another card come out either because there were a lot of draws on the board at that time. So I'm 3-betting with Ace King in position. Red machine decides to call, and I check behind because I mean, sometimes I just feel like checking behind my ace kings. Sometimes I'll bet. Usually against players that I play more against. Look at this. This is like complete reg fest at these 25NL tables. 21-17, 22-17, 21-17. Like what the hell is this? Tag, tag, tag. Between 5 and 7% 3-bet. And then you have me, 24-18, 6.8% 3-bet. 24-14, 6.2% 3-bet. 28-22. I mean, even at 25NL, you get just reg fests a lot of the time. And you gotta close the tables down and find new tables. Because, I mean, sure, you can probably get profit off of these players and beat them because they're going to be weaker. But it's better to have 50 12s, 38 30s, and things like that. Whenever this player bets the turn, because the board pairs and I also have like the king high and I'm just showing a lot of weakness, I think I should call that. And they bet again. And I know how this player plays, but at the same time, I'm like, I mean, that's a pretty big bet. Sometimes I can call this, sometimes I would fold this, I guess. Probably leaning towards a call this time, just because I'm a donkey, I guess. I mean, they have the 10 this time, but I can really see them showing up with complete air sometimes as well. Probably a bad call. But if I'm calling the turn, then I think that I should probably be calling the river as well. Because it's pretty much a brick. So, because I have history on them, 70% bet flop, 71% bet turn, they're a little bit more spewy / aggressive, I guess. I don't really think that this is an awful call. I would expect to see airballs some of the time as well, because I'm not really repping anything at all. He might be trying to get me off an ace high. So I think that I should have 3-bet 10s here. You know, small mistake. But let's see what happens. I'm going to call. I'm going to call. And yeah, I mean, Barbassa, I remember them as well. 1800 hands. I have a note that they triple barreled with air in the notes, that they have done that before. And so I felt like pocket 10s here is a clear call, because it's only like they're only betting like half pot. They don't bet too big on the flop, they don't bet too big on the turn, and they don't bet too big on the river either. And I feel like enough portion of the time I'm going to be good here with pocket 10s. But they had a flush that time. I don't think that I can kick myself too much for that. Pocket 3s, I flop a set. And they bet. And this player calls. And I'm going to raise. And this player probably knows, like, get the hell out, because they're tight and they're probably going to give me credit for something good here. Or maybe they didn't have anything either. So he shoves with pocket fours, and I win a pot. That's nice. I donk, call, shove. Okay, so this is a 76, 39, 30% 3-bet, 3.1 aggression factor, and they're pretty short stacked here. And okay, let's see what happened pre-flop. So Blue Mando min-raised pre-flop, and I bet they call. This guy shoves, and I call, and they had 7-8. Because these are extremely wild stats, I can see this player doing this with easily doing this with the very wide range. Flush draws, bottom pairs, weak second pairs, straight draws, overcards, random ace X. It's a little bit weird because this player has position on me, and I just felt like maybe they're gonna give me credit. Like, they're not gonna probably call this if they have 10 Jack or 10 Queen or something like that. But at the same time, their opening is, well, 19%. I don't know. That's maybe not a very accurate stat. It's a little loose, I'd say. Not just because I called this player, but because this player acted behind me. It's a little loose. But if they do feel like playing poker with 10 Jack or 10 Queen or something like that, I've still got a lot of outs to hit. And I have a very high confidence rating that I'm going to be beating this player most of the time with mid pair, second pair. I mean, I bet they raise. So they're raising me pretty small on a king 8-8 board. They're 57-27, pretty fishy, and they only have $11 remaining. So if they want to call me with a weaker king or a flush draw, let's go. They call. And they had 10-8 suited. I mean, like, what are you going to do? I'm not going to fold that. He could be doing that with a very, very wide range. A weaker king X, flush draw, things like that. So that was a fine hand. Looks like I'm not really, I'm not running too hot. So it says that I'm actually EV net 1 is 104, and I won $53 for the session. It might not seem like that, just because of like some of the weird hands that I've run into. I'm isolating this player with king queen off. I flop top pair. We have a 28-10 and a 28-22, and I bet. And I feel like I should have gone bigger, like $3 perhaps. $3.25. And this player decides to jam. They're a mouse icon, 1.53 bet percentage, 0.7 aggression factor, 40 bet flop. Only a 28 steal. And they have a limp. Well, okay, I have a limp fold as well, but this is screaming strength. Whenever a player does this, they're screaming strength. And I don't see them doing this with a straight draw. So King Jack is probably like King Jack and pocket fours. I'd have to give them credit for. pocket jacks as well, because their 3-bet so small. They could easily have pocket jacks. So that's 6, 10, 10 something combinations. And I think I should have just folded this. I don't really see any reason to do that. I'm pretty sure I'm good against this player. But whenever this player, I mean, these are pretty extreme stats right here, 1.5 and 0.7. And I'm not very surprised to find out that they show up with pocket 4s here. I mean, the best that I could hope for is that it's going to be a chop. Or they're doing this with 10 queen, which I'm not going to be, that's not really going to improve my equity too much anyway, but if they had 10 queen, they would just call because they're getting pretty good odds from a multi-way pot to begin with. I think that was, again, I need to just sit back, relax a little bit, meditate a little bit whenever players do things like that, and really try to nail down whether or not they're spewing or whether or not they have a value hand. Isolating a 74-3. I should be betting this pretty big. Probably bigger than that, like pot it. Yeah. I need to get back to bigger bet sizings. Probably the smallest that I would go, maybe like $6, $6.25 would have been better. Okay, so you see that now it's like 1853, and they have 2242 remaining. So if we go back to the flop, if I potted it, that would have been like an extra $50, 50 cents, matched it as $1. So the turn would be 867, and I could have bet 650, which would have been 650 plus 650 is 13, plus 767 is 2067. So now on the river, this would be at 2067-ish, maybe 21. And this player would have like $1.50 or $2 less. And so it would have been a better price. The pot size would be bigger than their stack size here. And actually, yeah, okay. So my isolation size was pretty good. So here, there's really nothing to do other than shove, I think. Okay, so this player actually bets out first on a Jack 9 6 5 3 board. And I'm pretty sure that I have the best hand here. But I decided call because this is like a sort of I feel like the only time that they'd be doing this is if maybe like their flush draw broke or they have an air ball. I mean, it's possible that they have like Jack Ace or Jack Queen or Jack King, but I think I'd probably just be happy taking the money and calling it a day because they're very fishy. And I guess you might say that I could have shoved, but these players can sometimes have such random hands. Jack 3, 9-3, 9-6, Jack 6, a lot of just random stuff that whenever they do show aggression like this, or they show interest after being so passive, I would rather probably just call and win a nice pot and be happy with it.